Friends and colleagues, thank you for joining me today. I'm John Ross, the president of the PA Principals Association and principal of Lionville Middle School in the Downingtown Area School District. Thank you for joining me again. This is the first edition of what we're going to be calling the President's Vlog, my video blog. Just thoughts on things, things that I'm trying to share, trying to start conversation with you, hoping that and by sharing that, it will help you either solidify how you feel about things or maybe even on occasion question how you feel about a few things. So, I'm going to be doing this regularly and looking to, again, get ideas on topics maybe from you as well. And hope that, you find a little bit of comfort in knowing that there's other people who feel the same as you do and hopefully help us all grow as professionals. So here's what we're going to talk about for the first one, something that my friend Dr. Nick Indeglio likes to call pushing the pendulum. Those of us that have been around for a number of years, this is actually, I've completed 28 years in public education. We've seen a few things. We've seen a thing or two, right? And we've seen that pendulum swing. We've seen it, in my early years in the early 90s in teaching. There was a big focus on so kind of when the whole accountability movement started, and we started to move away from some of the teachers I remember used to call it the warm and fuzzy to the cold and prickly, and we started to get a little bit more interested in, and as a nation, and as a society, and as educators, started to learn more about standardized tests and what they could potentially hold for us and tell us about our students, any kind of assessments could do. And if we've seen over the years that's paid dividends to some extent. It's also been a detriment to our profession to some extent, and that pendulum has kind of swung. We've seen it in terms of discipline. I think about some of the early days of disciplining students in classroom management when I first got on board as a teacher, and it was very, very regimented, very black and white, very little room for gray area or diagnosis of things. It was, you followed the rules, and if you didn't follow the rules, this is what the consequence was. And now we see incredible movement toward things like restorative practices, which I know is its own set of debate and discussion. But many more schools, finding gray area and starting to analyze how they discipline students, and is it really in the best interest of kids to do things a certain way. So my point being, we have to stop this back and forth. I feel like we have to stop this pendulum swinging in one direction and then in another direction, and really just pushing it off the pendulum completely. Just knock the whole thing over. Because I think what happens when we have this back and forth is you get people that kind of put down stakes in one camp or the other, and then they become very regimented and obedient to that camp, and less likely to want to go in another direction. And we all know change is difficult. We know that comes with the territory. But when we establish these camps, we're not helping kids, really, in my opinion. I just look at, unfortunately, the political world that our country is experiencing right now, and very, very little room for middle ground, very, very little room for compromise. It's, one way or the other, my way or the highway. Not pointing fingers or pushing blame at either party or anyone. It's just kind of the way things are right now, and hopefully aren't going to be much longer, because I think people are starting to realize that not a whole heck of a lot gets done when we're that way. So I think we can use that as an example for what we do in education. Some of the things that jump out to me as more recent examples of that pendulum swinging is, you look at the whole push for data and data driven instruction and using data to make all of our decisions. And again, while there are benefits to that, I believe there has to be some middle ground. We can't look at students as just a number. I shudder to think about the notion of there being, and I don't know that there are, but I've heard people talk about the notion of there being schools where you see kids walking down the hallway, and the teachers see imaginary bubbles over each kid's head that has their PSSA score or their SAT score or their most recent summative data or formative data from any standpoint. And it's just, no one wants to view kids that way. How did we get to that point? How did we get to the point where we put all of our eggs in that basket. And I think, again, it goes back to the notion of the pendulum swinging. Things got too relaxed and too comfortable. And, we were hesitant. I'll say it as somebody who was a teacher at the time. We were hesitant to even talk about having data or using data. So we pushed back. And the more we pushed back, the more people that wanted that pushed forward until the point where it got jammed down our throats, whether we wanted it or not. And I got to tell you, I'm a reformed worshiper of data. I was someone who was, as a leader, very interested and very supportive of the notion of data driven instruction. And I've moved away from that. And data has its place, and it can be useful, but it can't be the end all be all of what we do. Our kids are much more important and much more valuable than that. Um, so we have to push that pendulum completely off and stop letting it swing back and forth. And I think there's a couple of ways we can do that. Um, Number one, I think it's being transparent. I think we as leaders need to be transparent in how we feel about things. Then, while that might seem obvious, the time where it really started to resonate with me, uh, many of you have heard of Hamish Brewer, who's a fantastic principal, former principal of the year, just a great presence on social media, and has a lot of great things to say. And he was like the first principal that I know that I heard saying to kids, "I love you." Like saying to our kids, that you're important to me. I value you, that you're not just somebody passing through our office. Again, I think back to when I was an assistant principal and I had to deal with discipline, and I had a stack of referrals on my desk, and it was just, let me just get through these things. And one kid after another, next, next, next. We have to, I mean, it upsets me to think that at one point in my career, I was operating that way. Our interactions need to be much more meaningful to kids. Kids shouldn't be afraid to come to the principal's office. If you're still operating under that mindset, I feel bad for you. If children are afraid of you, if kids are afraid to walk into your office, if they're afraid to approach you, in my humble opinion, uh, there's a problem there. We have to be viewed as somebody who's just as integral and just as supportive to our kids as teachers are. And the way we do that is to be transparent. Talk to the kids about our failures. Talk to the kids about our successes. Talk to the kids about how we feel about them. Be genuine. Be honest. Kids can smell baloney from a mile away, right? They can smell that BS coming down the track. So you can't try and pull one over on kids. And I think the more transparent and honest we are with them, and with our parents and with our teachers, I think that gets people to be interested in what we have to say, and they're much more likely to buy into what we're trying to do. Um, so the other thing I would say, the other way we do that is to push your message. So in your being transparent, get a message, come up with something that you want to say, and push that out there as much as possible. Many people have said before, if you don't control your message, someone else is going to dictate it for you. And I agree with that. But I also think there's something about just being very pushing, just very pushy about how you relay your message to your community, and repeating it over and over again and living by it and backing it up. It can't just be an empty vision statement that's hanging over the doorway to your school. It has to be a way you live, and a way you operate. And new teachers know that right from the get go. So again, that's why I hesitate talking about vision statements or things like that. Just your message. Just keep it something simple as whatever your message is, because I don't think anybody can deny how important that is. And then the last thing that I would say is, and it's similar to the being transparent, but it's actually a little bit more assertive. And that's just leave no doubt in anyone's mind that you are a champion for children. You're not a champion for principals. You're not a champion for what's in the best interest of the adults. You're not a champion for the school board or the superintendent, or no. Everybody who works in public education, it should be abundantly clear that they are a champion for children, that what they are going to do and how they are going to live their lives and how they are going to make decisions, it is always with the best interests of kids at heart. And again, that's a phrase that gets thrown around a lot, but not a whole lot. There are a whole lot of people that do, but there are people that are still struggling with living that way. And so I think demonstrating that you're a champion for children consistently, I think that's how you push that pendulum right off the tracks. And we got ourselves to a point where we're at a happy medium, and we have the ability to, move in each direction a little bit as needed as things change and as we learn more, we're able to move this way or that way, but we can avoid these extremes of going back and forth from one way to another and learn more about ourselves and our school and do a better job for our community. So that's what pushing the pendulum is all about to me. Again, as I said earlier, I thank you for your time. Thanks for watching this, and welcome your feedback. Let me know what you think. With that, thanks a lot. Thanks a lot. Have a great day.